Good morning. Welcome back to Morning at NTV. My name is Malaki Vilodera. Now today on the Solution segment, as usual, we always carry forward that conversation that Andrew Chamagero has with you on ground. So today the big conversation is on pharmacovigilance. When you go out to the pharmacies to buy a drug, whatever it is, are you asked for a prescription first, or do they just fast and quickly give you what you want and you pay for it? So in studios to talk about that and pharmacovigilance, how far, and what is being done, to tame these particular pharmacies. So in studios to talk about this, I have Dr. Ekwaro Obuku. He is the president, Uganda Medical Association. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. Next to him, I have Madam Victoria Nambasa. She is the manager, Pharmacovigilance National Drug Authority. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. Now, of course, this conversation started last week. We saw this in the papers, and there's been an issue. Even with the statistics, it's an issue, and people actually came out because we are always in ground and we get this feedback on social media. Nowadays, it's very easy to access drugs, be it class A or B, which we know that with those classes of drugs, you have to have a prescription from a doctor for you to access those drugs. Let me start with the National Drug Authority, Madam Victoria. You are mandated to supervise these particular pharmacies. What's happening? Why is it so easy nowadays to access these drugs?
Thank you. Probably rational. The system generally, how does the system affect this balance? Now bringing in where we buy the drugs, the people prescribing the medicines, the doctors, they have an impact on this balance. The patients themselves, they will impact on this balance. So I think let's look at it in that context that everyone or every stakeholder has an impact on maintaining this balance.
Okay.
So,
but on the front of pharmacies,
so the distribution chain, the distribution channels will really impact on our benefit-risk balance. So, if for example, a patient goes to any pharmacy or drug outlet which is not licensed, it means the products probably that are being stocked there are not appropriate. We are not sure of their quality. Then the person dispensing this drug may not be the right person in terms of qualification, so they won't even give the right drug. So in the process, they can give the wrong drug to this patient and they get issues.
So the issue stems from these pharmacies not being licensed?
That's one of them.
Okay, so someone would ask, and of course we were on ground, and you actually watched this with Andrew Chamagero being on ground, and the question is, why do these pharmacies that are not licensed even exist in the first place? If NDA has that particular pharmacovigilance, system just to detect, and address and monitor, of course, these pharmacies, why do these pharmacies exist, and why do we have unqualified, personnel operate in these pharmacies?
I think like any system or community where you have a law, there will always be, you know, people who want to go against the laws. We have clear laws. We have clear procedures on how to, you know, obtain, you know, a license for a pharmacy. If you want to operate, the laws, the procedures are there, clear. And if one genuinely wants to, you know, is qualified to operate, it's easy to, you know, to go and get the licenses. But, you know, there are people who, for some reasons, they want to, you know, go behind the doors, you know, operate. We have systems. We have an enforcement unit that is always moving out to check on these pharmacies. But, you know, sometimes you find they open in the night. You know, we have officers who have, you know, working hours. So if an officer is supposed to check on them from 8 to 5, or sometimes we have even night shifts. But somehow people find out of like opening between those wee hours, you know, from maybe 9 to, you know, in the communities out there. So sometimes it's hard to, you know, to enforce, but it calls each of us to be responsible.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of responsibility, and I'll bring you in on this one, Dr. Obuku, how then do we go about identifying a legal pharmacy, that which has been licensed and that one which is not licensed? So how do we go about detecting and knowing? Because it seems clearly that everything is in our hands. We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, as Victoria was saying, the issue of a pharmacy which is not licensed or having staff who are not qualified in pharmacies is just one aspect of pharmacovigilance. It's a risk factor. And pharmacovigilance is more, from the layman's perspective, is really how alert are we to identify a problem with a drug or a therapeutic product, a device, yeah? Then how are we able to document that or report that as patients, as health workers, as interested parties to the authorities who are the National Drug Authority, so that they can take action. A very good example is a drug which has been known to be harmful, is in the market. Patients complain about it, doctors talk about it, but there has not been awareness about the processes to make the authorities who are responsible aware. Now, this is why we are here this morning, to encourage the general public to be aware that actually you can report these things.
So how do you identify?
So one thing, of course, you can experience it. Let me give you a history of a drug called thalidomide. Thalidomide was a drug given in the 60s. Slightly before that, there was interest. There was the discovery of antibiotics in the 40s, you know, against tuberculosis, and therefore there was sort of a renaissance. People were happy that, oh, finally we have antibiotics and we can treat. This was Europe. But the idea that side effects would happen was not, not that it wasn't a trend, but people did not pay attention that actually taking a drug can also be problematic, and we would rather avoid it. So women who are pregnant and were vomiting in the morning so much were being given this drug, and it was working. So it became popular, you know. Later they discovered that actually the drug was causing very unwanted effects. Children were being born without limbs. Can you imagine? But yet, it gives you that temporary relief the first few months of pregnancy. So this is what we are talking about, that yes, drugs are very good, but there are safety concerns in terms of known side effects, but also unknown side effects.
So we have
now, why let me bring you now to the point.
Yes.
These students were talking about pharmacy is not licensed. That's a risk factor. You are going to a pharmacy without a prescription, and the person who is dispensing, let's assume is a pharmacist, has a range of options to give you, which may not be in agreement with the clinician who has reviewed you, and give you a drug which the clinician has said maybe this drug, if you give it with another drug that you are taking, or because of your genetic issues or history or your allergies, which probably the pharmacy has not assessed, gives you this drug, gives you another option, it may cause an unwanted or unexpected side effect. You get what I mean? So it's important that you go there with a prescription, preferably from a clinician. This is the most, a very important step.
But even if you go with a prescription, how do you identify that pharmacy X or pharmacy Y is a legal entity?
Yeah, now I wanted to talk about that aspect of regulation briefly, because this is really their role.
Right.
Is that a pharmacy which is licensed, okay, must display its license. And every pharmacy which is licensed must also have the license of the practitioner, the pharmacy practitioner. They call themselves doctors now, pharmaceutical doctors. Must have that license there displayed in a visible, like very near the, it can be seen, not at the back, but it can be seen. That's one way of assuring quality, that I'm getting a quality that there is quality of service in terms of pharmaceutical products there. But I wanted to also mention that what prevents people from going through that is the reality on the ground.
Okay.
There is an explosion of medication, using a medication in everything. Yeah? There are even now products which are not necessarily in our ambit. These herbs. They even now, people are using, what do I call them now? Like holy water. You know what I mean? So there's an explosion of this urge of, I want something to take for my psychological or real ailment. And therefore, there is needed to pay attention. The NDA can never have that capacity to monitor every corner. And that's why it's calling upon the general public
to be vigilant.
To be vigilant and report this. What is crucial is that we need to know that in Africa today, the bulk of medicines, no, not the bulk, but there has been an increase in fake products generally, including medicines. And these fake products can lead to undesired effects.
Okay. Madam Victoria, and I'll bring you in on this one. Of course, he mentioned fake drugs, and this is what you're seeing every day. And people say that, okay, fine, you can go to a pharmacy, you see the, the license showcased where you can see it. Andrew Chamagero said, and actually gave an example. Of course, we don't mean that that particular pharmacy he mentioned is actually illegal or has issues. But you will go, the pharmacy is quite beautiful. Of course, optics, they always pay attention to optics, making sure that everything is displayed beautifully. But even some of this sort of beautiful, properly, licensed pharmacies sell fake drugs. We've had issues as well. We've had feedback coming from the public that I went to X prestige kind of, pharmacy, but still the drugs I got there, or I went there and I was able to easily access, class A and class B of drugs which I need to really have a prescription to access, So why are we having those, kind of gaps, even with the licensed pharmacies, if you actually license them and you monitor them as well?
First of all, I want to say the issue of fake, it depends on the context. Sometimes a patient, we've received patients coming to us saying, oh, I went to this doctor who gave me this fake drug because it didn't cure my disease, or I got this side effect. So to them, it becomes fake because it didn't do what they wanted that drug to do. So in that context, they think it's a fake. But we have, the universal definitions for fake. So it can be fake because they treated the wrong disease. You understand? That's what I was referring to as, drug-related issues. So the drug might not be fake, but because they went in for the wrong drug for that particular patient, like I have a cough, and then they gave me maybe a syrup. We know syrups don't really treat cough. So if I don't get better, so this doctor gave me a fake drug.
But if the drug is really fake.
But when we are talking of what we mean counterfeits, we better use the right words.
Right,
counterfeits, yes. Yeah. We can't deny it. Counterfeits are global. It's a global problem. Even in, developed countries, we have counterfeits. But there are systems in place. As a regulator, we have a system to ensure that we monitor, we check out on all the counterfeits. We have post-marketing surveillance where we go out and pick samples and, check on the quality of our products. But also we call upon the public to be aware where you buy your products. Normally the people who are dealing in fake products, they try to sneak this in our supply chain. That's why we insist, buy from license, because there we can easily trace back You know, if there's a suspicion, you can go back and trace. But it would be very hard if you buy from anyone, anywhere where we can't even trace back the batches, because we can't do away with fake, even in other commodities, you know, machines and all. We have those fake, but do we have systems to detect? So people have to be aware that, okay, fake drugs can penetrate the market, but how can we do our role to protect ourselves from these fake products?
Okay, Dr. Obuku, I'll let you in on this one. And of course, we've been seeing these issues come up, and people have been saying, with Tanzania, with Kenya, with Rwanda, they have strict rules and regulations, whereby you can't start off a pharmacy business if you're not a pharmacist. But here in Uganda, we're living in a liberalized, you know, kind of economy. Provided you have the chums, you have the money, you can start it out, and you just employ a pharmacist, a part-time pharmacist. So if we get back to those rules and regulations that are working for Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and even European countries, will that somewhat give us solutions to sort out our crisis and the problems that are there currently? Dr. Obuku?
Thank you very much. A few things. One, of course, Uganda is not an island. It is not possible that as soon as you leave Kenya, things change, like from white to black. So I don't think we are very far from the challenges Kenya faces. What I know is that enforcement is a very big challenge, and that depends on commitment of the authorities. For example, we have a common joke in health policy that Uganda has one of the best policies, well written, but they are implemented in Rwanda. I think the issue of enforcing these rules and regulations is being taken up, and harmonizing the policies, because at the moment, for example, we have various prescribers, doctors, medical doctors, clinical officers, nurses. We even have what we call traditional healers or herbalists making their prescriptions and concoctions, sometimes mixing with some of these drugs, what I would call from the formal sector, you know, antibiotics. So that is being regulated by several laws which are coming into place. But of course, there needs to be funding to enforce now, to implement the law. One of them is what they call the traditional medicines bill, 2015. But it has a different official name. I think they call it alternative and complementary medicines bill, which is going to regulate the sector of those who prescribe. If, for example, herbs, you have seen people selling them in the bus, yeah? In the bus, in the markets, without good regulation. And the current laws do not permit the NDA to clamp on those or the Medical and Dental Practitioners Council. So that is the first law. The second law being revised is that of the Uganda Medical and Dental Practitioners Council, which is going to merge the pharmacists, the allied health, and the doctors together in something called the Health Professional Councils of Uganda. So once we are all together, then we'll be in our hierarchies. Okay? The third one, I think, is the revision of the NDA Act of 1993 to give it more powers to enforce some of these things, because sometimes they find a problem, arrest these people, the law is weak, and therefore they are rendered useless. And you know, this is for everybody, it's a public thing.
Madam Victoria, tell us today, and it seems that it's now up to us as the public to be quite vigilant when it comes to identifying fake and counterfeit drugs, identifying pharmacies that are operational and are not, you know, kind of licensed. So when it comes to purchasing a drug, I get it, it's packaged. What should I look out for before I actually pay and go home with it and start using it out? What should I look out for?
Okay, I think that's a good question. And but first thing is you have to know what you went to get. Read the label, the package, whether the drug is well written. So if you went to buy paracetamol, is it paracetamol that's been given? 2, check on the expiry date. Is it within the expiry date? 3, does it have like batch number? Because those are the basic requirements for us we go out for. The name of the drug, the expiry date, when it was manufactured, the expiry date, has it got a batch number? In case you have a problem, you can trace back. Then normally it should be in English. Please reject products that are not in English or translated in English. So whoever is selling a product that is in maybe Turkish or whatever, just know that didn't go through our system. Our requirement is if a product is to be used in Uganda, it has to be translated in English.
Okay.
So those are the basics that anyone can check
right.
on.
And of course, before I come to Dr. Obuku, there's been issues, and this, of course, we've been seeing in the papers and in the news, where some unscrupulous, you know, kind of pharmacies and centers, they tamper with the expiry dates. If they know product X is almost getting to the expiry date, of course, because it's business at the end of the day, I don't want this batch to just go to waste. They tamper with it and try to edit it out. So if I come across or I suspect it, what should I look out for? The manufacturing date and the expiry date. What gap should be there? Or just give us tips on how to identify such.
And like I said, it's very hard to actually identify a fake or counterfeit product or something that has been tampered. So make sure you are suspicious. Just work with suspicion, because you may not tell. So if you see, okay, an expiry date maybe has been scratched, please just say, ask the pharmacist, or just check on NDS just to verify, just in case it's, you know, tampered with, because it's better to be suspicious than to go, you know, with a product that probably is fake. And the funny bit is most of the fake products look nice.
Very nice.
They look nice.
Yeah.
So it might not be easy for the public, a lay person. Actually, even me, sometimes if I don't have, you know, the two, I might not be able to take. But just work with suspicions. That's what I tell the public. Just work on the suspicion. Just ask for someone to confirm to you. NDA has a toll-free line, NDA has WhatsApp, or you just go to our offices in the region. It will save everyone to check on this. But also, apart from the outside package, make sure you check on the tablet itself. Does it change color? I expect paracetamol to be white. Do I see black spots? If it's a syrup, when I shake, does it, you know, uniformly distribute? All those little things make, you know, a difference.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Obuku, as we come to a close, how do we identify pharmacists or workers in pharmacies who are licensed and them that are not? Do we now go around and ask, please show me your license so you can actually prescribe
As I said, quickly, just to answer your question, those are displayed. They must be displayed, I think, by law.
Yes.
By law. But what I thought would be...
Is that just for the pharmacy, but for the attendants themselves?
So pharmacists, unless they are clinical pharmacists, who are very few in Uganda, don't interact with the patients to the extent of altering the medication. The better practice would be go and see the doctor. However, there's what we call over-the-counter drugs.
Yes.
You know, a simple headache, so on and so forth, which shouldn't bring complications. So that's one. Two, I wanted to not to miss the opportunity she mentioned. I wonder when during this talk she can just jot down the numbers and we display on the WhatsApp so that members of the public know where to report. You know, this is a rare occasion that we come here. If she can, in this short time, jot down at some point we display. But what I wanted to talk about before we go away is... you know, you mentioned a very important aspect, and this all we are talking about is quality of the product, which can be affected. I jotted down by, you've talked about counterfeit drugs, you've talked about medication errors. Yeah. You know, you go to the pharmacy, then they alter it, the dose is not correct, then you can get a side effect. Everything is okay with the drug, then you get problem. What I wanted to mention is that everything may be okay in appearance, but you are seeing new side effects. I just looked at the latest newsletter of pharmacovigilance by the NDA, and it reported between May and August and October this year, there were about 14-15 cases of gentamicin, whereby soon after injection, they would get throbbing headaches, some develop pressure, some loss of consciousness. And this came from patients reporting and the doctors reporting. So we are asking that clinicians, nurses, clinical officers, doctors report. Okay. What we have done finally as Uganda Medical Association is that annually we meet something called the Grand Doctors Conference, and this year we are starting actually with this issue in the morning of 16th on Friday from 8 a.m. to about 11, where together with the NDA we are coming together to sensitize the public. We shall have a press conference, we shall have some radio announcements to really sensitize the public that we are doing something about it to improve quality of care of the patient.
Victoria, what are the numbers?
The toll-free line is 088-0800-101-999.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in studios. Of course, it's a conversation that we'll keep on having, very important, especially with cracking down the fakes and the counterfeits. Thank you so much for coming in studios. Dr. Okwaro Obuku, President of the Uganda National Association. Thank you so much. Victoria Nambasa, Manager of Pharmacovigilance at the National Drug Authority. Thank you so much for coming in studios. Morning at NTV still continues. Up next is Flavia Tumusime with Take Note. Keep it here.